Far too many people are battling some form of addiction or another, and I've always been curious to know why some people are more likely to be an addict, while others can simply indulge in certain things or behaviors and get away with it. Let's find out why that happens and why people relapse and what the role of the family is, and so much more as we live out loud with Professor Robinson Ocharo from the University of Nairobi next. Hello and welcome to Sheila Lives Out Loud. My name is Sheila Moniga. I'm thrilled you're on this channel. While you're here, please click subscribe and hit notifications so you never miss an episode when we upload. We are in the throes of season 8 and we're living out loud at Sai Suites Apartment Hotel. Luxury redefined. It's such an incredible place. Spend some time, stop by and enjoy yourself at Sai Suites Apartment Hotel. And joining me for a conversation on addiction is Professor Robinson Ocharo from the University of Nairobi, Department of Sociology and Social Work. Hello, Professor. How are you?
I'm good.
It's always such a pleasure to see you. You know, you're one of my super guests. And the reason why I say super guest is you actually make use of, you know, the door is always open. Please return for a chat. And when I call you on the phone and I say, Daktari, aka Professor, niko na shida tafadhali, you say, okay, fine. What is it that you'd like to discuss? And you come through for me. So I'm so thankful.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome.
In speaking about addiction, and you were my supervisor for my master's thesis.
Yes, I was.
The first question you said is, can we go back to the beginning of what are you asking me to do? And I said, well, I'd like us to have a chat on addiction.
We need to unpack addiction so that we don't always look at it from a negative point of view socially. Because if I'm addicted to prayers, how injurious is that? It could lead to social distance, yes, but it's not as serious as a disease, as being addicted to drugs, as being addicted to alcohol, and other socially regulated behaviors. They are regulated because we know the limits. You say it's taking a grip of society. Yes. Now we need to think which one. If I take you back to your own research,
yes, sir.
That was addiction.
Yes.
Because what the shocker I received when you came with your data is those headphones plugged, and everybody in the youth industries, they have the headphones. That's addiction.
As a form of addiction.
It's a form of addiction.
For those who don't know what we're talking about, I wrote this absolutely amazing thesis. You must read it. It is in the library. At least don't look at me like that. He's looking at me like, you wrote it. And I'm like, yes, I did. And you supervised.
I supervised you.
It's available at the Jomo Kenyatta Library at the University of Nairobi.
It should be online also.
And it's also online too. And it's also available in the International Journal of Social Sciences. But do I say? I do say. Okay, we say. And the thesis was really about the socialization on sexuality of urban Kenyan youth. And so at that time, I was working on radio, and so I was doing a research about what are young people listening to, and radio was a big deal. And so the form of addiction he's talking about is radio, and what we were listening to and why we were always on the radio.
That irresistible urge to consume, to be there.
Exactly.
So there is irresistible urge to alcohol, to take alcohol, irresistible urge to take sedatives. Let me classify them now, sedatives, because they put you in a world of your own, in a trance.
State,
addiction here is about irresistible urge. And then there is a level of it that we look at it as a disease, physical and mental disease. It's physical in that you are likely to harm yourself along the way, depending on what you're addicted to, directly or indirectly. Because direct harming is, if you said people tell their families, I don't want you, I'm distancing myself from you. That is a way of telling them our social link is cut. Why am I cutting it? Because you're no longer useful. Why are you not useful? Because you're not part of what I am. And you cannot be. Maybe they're telling you, stop, it's becoming too much. Maybe they're not approving of it. So it hurts physically. Psychological, when we go to sedatives, that's where the damage begins. Because it has an effect on your function psychologically, and functioning psychologically. It has an effect on how you're going to judge things around you and basically live your life. So I think most people are worried about addiction to drugs, addiction to alcohol. There is addiction to sex.
Right.
Which is equally dangerous. And it's peaking.
Yes, it is. It exposes so many people to very risky sexual
behaviors.
Yeah.
So that is generally what we should pursue. But health addiction, like going to church every Sunday, you must go. Combat it. You can't resist.
Yeah. And
Get
the
addicted.
benefits are not bad unless you join a cult. And then we cannot help you there.
If you join a cult and you get addicted to it,
yes,
remember, compulsive urge. And you can't stop it.
Right. So that is a marker of addiction. And it's great that we've gotten to this point in this conversation. Let's look at other markers, because that is such a key thing, where you get to a point where you feel this day cannot end, or this hour must not end without this thing. You're no longer in control of that urge. It belongs to the craving within you. It's like something else has taken over.
The brains build what we call a perfect connection between your action, the satisfaction, because it rewards. If you're addicted to alcohol, I will not be rewarded, but it rewards you. When you go into that world of your own, when you go into a trance, that is when you feel you're fulfilled, you're rewarded. So when you are addicted, it's whether you are benefiting from it or not. Now, you can't resist it. Why?
Why? Why can't you just simply say no? Because some people will be exposed to the same amount of alcohol, for instance, but one person will just not be able to say, I've had enough, I'm going home, and I don't have to come back tomorrow or the day after. In fact, I'll see you in a year's time. But for others, you can't walk away.
Two things here. When you have that strong craving for it, and it rewards, do you want to quit? To be punished? The answer is no. So you don't want to quit. Two, once the body gets used to it, that is what drives you. It's like your fuel. If you withdraw, the body reacts. And that's why if you go to drug rehabilitation, alcohol rehabilitation, the first thing they will tell you, they cannot instantly withdraw. They will do it gradually so that your body adjusts gradually. It's like a vehicle that you want to change fuel from this powerful fuel to the less powerful, not instantly. Kidogo, kidogo.
Or when you're driving a car and you want to change gears, you can't go from gear 5
to 1.
To 1.
You can't.
You and the that body car will come and rocotta you.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what happens.
Right.
And that's why you find it very difficult when we have rehabilitation centers and people will take their own. It's like,
it's
I want this one stopped by yesterday.
Yeah.
It can't happen. They will tell you, leave it to us, and we are admitting for this period.
Right.
Why don't you hide the alcohol? Why don't you? It doesn't work like that because of the body getting used to it.
Okay. Yeah. So the basic primary premises and foundation of addiction is pleasure. It's reward. There's something that this particular thing, because we are not going to just say it's drugs or the alcohol, but it's this behavior, it's this thing that rewards you mentally chemically even, because
Chemically.
there's a really big chemical issue
Socially,
happening.
so there are many rewards there.
Right, right.
And I tell you the social aspect which people don't know.
Yeah.
The company I keep as an addict is where I do my social connection. Tell me to stop and go to church, and somebody tell me, open this book, let's sing this Jakutumaini sin. I will not be rewarded. I will see strangers. So that company is not mine.
Right.
Social reward.
Yes.
People don't say about it. The other rewards, they could be economic reward. Some, like in sex addiction, some start with economic reward, and later on they combine it. I think, yeah, I've written that with my nephew.
Okay.
About sex and commercial sex and all that.
Yeah.
And what you can start as commercial, then you get other rewards along the way, secondary rewards.
Yeah.
Then you combine. So from economic, there is a social, there is the biological, all this combined. So where do you, as I said, where do you get fulfilled? Because the system has tuned itself to get fulfilled in a certain setting with certain specific stimuli.
Yeah.
A cigarette here, cocaine here, a woman here, several stimuli.
Right.
That's your social setting. Now, remove me from that, you take me to a strange world.
Yeah, that is not where I'm from.
No.
And it is very difficult.
So reward can come in many forms.
There's an expression that I'm sure many have heard being used in conversation, sometimes to explain things, sometimes to explain away, especially the fact that someone really does have a serious problem. And this is functional addict. What or who is a functional addict?
Look at the way the brain works, if I get that right. That, and the body system. Let's look at the withdrawal symptoms, then you will understand the functional addict. If I, and they use it in the streets, kutoa lock.
And we laugh about it.
You see, they are totally useless without that fuel. They are perfect functionaries once
they've had a little drink.
Yes.
They've had a little
they stabilize.
Sniff.
The system stabilizes for them to deliver. If you want them not to deliver, deny them.
Deny them.
So you look at them as, are they functionaries when they're drunk? The answer is always yes. That's functional addict.
And I'm sure we've walked past a few individuals here and there, and the first thing you notice is the breath, and you wonder, and how are you standing? Because from what I'm smelling...
When did you wake up?
Yes. Did you even wake up at all? Or you came straight from where you were, and you're working, and you seem to be doing okay.
And midday,
yeah,
when the alcohol is going or the drug,
yes,
they start diminishing in terms of their delivery.
Right, the energy levels begin to...
Give them a dose, add fuel.
Right, and they're right back on top of the world again. But you've mentioned withdrawal, and the issue of withdrawal is not an easy case. In terms of treating addictions, it's scaling down. Your exposure to that particular item, for instance, you begin to expose this person to less and less and less. And finally, you've weaned them out of it. Going through withdrawal, what happens to the body?
What we call withdrawal symptoms is actually the entire system. You connect it now, it's like going back to class, the nervous system.
Yeah.
And perfect response. You brains all the way to the central nervous system where we have the interneurons and the motor neurons, the muscles and all that.
Yeah.
There is a way they connect to each other. But what you've done, you've conditioned them. That's a perfect connection between a responsibility, a role, drug.
Exactly. So one of them is going to be the bell.
Which role, which responsibility you're supposed to perform without the drug.
Yeah.
In other words, the dog could have salivated only at the presence of the food. But now it's salivating at the sound of a bell.
Yes.
Conditioning.
Conditioning.
You ask what happened to the body. It's conditioning. So the perfect built system where if you tell somebody now, you're going to to face a crowd.
Yeah.
And tell you, okay, let me rush to the counter, then I'll come and face it. That's conditioning.
Yeah.
So, because the mind says, without that which is at the counter, you cannot face the crowd. Things we need to do normally, they don't need any conditioning. But once we start conditioning, the brain reverses the connection and brings in or introduces this new substance.
New pathways. There's a lady that I spoke to, and we were talking about, you know, food. Because again, food, many people are addicted to food, or, you know, sugar, or just very specific things.
And that's why I said addiction is in many forms.
It's in many forms. So the way we like to throw that word around and accuse people, there are things that are happening in private that are actual real addictions that we don't want to fess up to. But she said the brain is really interesting in that it has the capability of recreating new pathways. That if you keep doing certain things, it will begin to become more natural and you condition yourself to start doing things slightly differently. But the question that I now ask is, we want to believe we can help people who are battling addictions. But far too often, from celebrities, from prominent personalities, we see them going back and forth with rehab. And one familiar case was this beautiful British superstar who even sang a song called Rehab. She said, you tried to make me go to rehab. I said, no, 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 no. Yet those drugs are the very things that killed her. So what happens when people relapse? Why do people go back and forth and back and forth? Before
the science is the joke.
Okay.
Before the science is the joke.
Okay.
Going back.
Yeah.
Is basically in religion what you call backsliding.
Yes. Why? What happens? We say we've left the pleasures of the world.
Psychologically now,
we go back there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Psychologically, that is what we call spontaneous recovery. What your brains have taken in will never be erased.
Really? So even if I create a new pathway today, that old pathway that I used to walk on still exists.
Let's start with that knowledge.
Right.
Never, it will never erase. You have three basic compartments. I have the same with any other person. The conscious, you and I now. The subconscious, it takes time to recall and all that.
Yeah.
The unconscious, which needs scientific intervention to bring it out. The brain is like a book with ledgers.
Yeah.
So once you close this page is open and all that.
Yeah.
What you quit, chances of spontaneous recovery are always there in the presence of the same environment, same stimuli. Chances of the mind connecting back, simply connecting back, are there. That's why in a rehab, a good rehab should go to the extent of equipping the person with life skills, how to resist, quote unquote, temptations. Those are life skills. Right. If they're not strong, now back to my joke. If you're not strong in the, well, the pastor told me, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, God is watching. So even if you're alone, God is
there with you.
So God is watching. So I'll not do it. That's the strength. Now, what is your life skill after rehab?
So it is very
Who is
unfair.
watching?
Yeah.
Who is likely to be offended, and which way is it right in your conscience? If not, you'll still ask yourself, I was there and I can still be there, so what? It
takes more than willpower to deal with an addiction. Like you rightly said, don't just take this out of my usual everyday. You know, being in a rehab facility means you're away from what your life really does look like. That's not enough. It's life skills. It's knowing this is how you're going to cope. This is what to do when these urges are coming. It's learning new things.
This willpower, we have never defined it. Before we go to the power itself, let's talk about free will. You don't have it. I don't have it.
As an addict, you don't.
No, as an individual.
What, all of us? You actually
Sheila,
think
you
we don't
have a free will.
Please explain.
We control you.
Who's we?
We, the people around you.
Oh, right. Okay.
The people who socialize
I thought you were talking about this invisible, sneaky force that is the man. But you're really actually referring to the society that we live in and the individuals we interact with.
The individuals you interact with, those who socialize, those who influence your thinking.
They do have a huge role on the things that we're doing.
On how far you can stretch that, what you call...
How you behave.
Who you are.
Things that make you you. Excellent,
Now the willpower has to be accompanied by specific rewards and punishment.
Right.
I know that I've been doing this as an individual in my voluntary counseling.
Yeah.
I've been doing it as an individual. I must get real evidence. Let me split you into two. Sheila and Manyiga. I'm counseling Sheila.
Yeah.
I must get real evidence of a Manyiga who went through what I'm persuading you to go through, who quit drugs, and show that this person was rewarded. You see the beauty of it? And I must get another real evidence of another person who did not go through it and see the punishment
that followed. Yes.
And I always crown it with one thing. I fear if there could be Christians in this world, if the Bible did not talk about hell, the fear element.
Right. Well, you know what they say, fear seems to work a whole lot more, especially when it comes to faith.
So when you submit to learned helplessness, you learn to be helpless, where you look at things around you and say, there's nothing within my powers that I can do to change the way things are
happening. Right.
So they tell you, let's use alcohol. Go to the rural, even in the urban. I'm sure somebody has faced you and told you, so unajua mimi ni mlevi, so utafanyaje? So leave me alone. That's who I am. Yeah.
And they tell you that
you can't change it.
Face.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they have nothing to look to outside that and say, if I step out of this path, I'll benefit. There's nothing to show that in the path they are in, there's danger. Those two things are very powerful.
You can't just show one side of the equation. Show both.
And real evidence.
Yes.
Don't read stories of Tom and Jerry.
Nilisoma. Yes.
Real evidence. And real evidence, what you're supposed to seek permission from the person who was there.
Yeah.
And is being rewarded to go and explain. It's like giving a testimony.
Yeah.
Without that, there's nothing to look to.
The other part of addiction is also the people who have to live with the addict. It's not an easy journey. And I say this because I think of a certain lady whose son he had a drug problem, and after she stopped giving him money, he pretty much just started selling the household wares.
Yeah, stealing, they'll do that.
Yes. What would you say to families who are dealing with that? Where do you even begin? You don't have a sofa.
You have somewhere to begin.
To sit down.
You have somewhere to begin.
Where?
Accept it and seek assistance. If you don't know how to deal with it, if you're not trained how to deal with it, accept, because denial, a person living with it, also denying or living in that wishful thing of one day God will intervene, it will punish you forever. You are equally in a mess. Accept it. It's your son, your sister. Don't be embarrassed about it. It's your mother, your father, your daughter. Accept it and seek assistance. I know, like what they do in strict biomedics approach. What they do does not socially, in the long run, assist. That thing of putting you into a trance, there's a machine they use, which you go into a trance, it kind of erases the memory, quote unquote, and you come out, it's like now you'll be seeing things and the mind will reconnect back.
Again, because like you said, those pathways always exist. It may look like you've erased them, but there's no such thing as erasure of that nature. And all it takes is just one trigger somewhere, a setting, a placement, a smell, and we're back where we
A
started.
sound.
Or even a sound, and we're back where...
The sight of it.
Yeah, yeah. We're back where it all
Something
started.
similar to it.
Or something else, but very similar, that triggers those reward pathways. Fantastic. Professor, this is such a huge, huge issue. We can't talk about it in one sitting and expect to change the world with it, but we can start talking about it and change the world with it. And so I want to say thank you for being here. As we wrap up, there must be some key notes that you want to share with us. It could be towards the care, it could be towards those who are battling with it. And I know for some, just telling them, you know, there are those who accept, I do have a problem, and there are those who will never accept. So your parting words on this whole topic for today's sitting.
My worry is how close we connect to the people around us. Because a minute out there with another person, other than, say, my pastor or whatever, a minute is enough to change the way I think. So how do we engage? We are very loose in our engagement, and that's what is leading to all this source of addiction.
Right.
It starts with the families, and I have asked this question, and I will ask it now. Families, mothers and fathers. How many of us can stand and say we are parents? I'm not one. Because parenting is very key here. Remember, nobody came to this world a drug addict or addicted to this other. Even in addicted to prayer, you are socialized into it. And the primary socializing agents
are the parents, the family unit.
We have failed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can
it
we
comes
wake
down
up?
to families.
Yeah.
We can't throw away the people who are struggling. They're still ours. And we'd better start accepting what's happening and seeking help.
Yeah. Let's wake up as one basic unit, the family.
The family. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Professor. I'm so very grateful that you've made the time to have this chat with us. And you can find more works that have been written by Professor Robinson Ocharo. Just log on to the JKL library. See, that's the Jomo Kenyatta Library of University of Nairobi. Some great works have been published there. To be specific, he is posted to the Department of Sociology and Social Work, and you can also find my works in the museum too. I'm just saying, okay, our works in the museum too. Thank you for watching this episode. If it means something to you, please drop a comment below and share this with somebody who you believe needs to listen to what we talked about. As always, do click subscribe and hit notifications. Next week, we'll upload another scintillating conversation from Sai Suites Apartment Hotel. Luxury defined. You've got to come out and see it for yourself. Until then, live out loud in all that you do. Bye for now.